Welcome back to the Undeserved Flavor. Just had a couple thoughts. Wanted to talk a little bit about Jesus. One being, Jesus is the source. Jesus is God. Jesus is the I am, the incarnation of the I am, the express image of God, just like the Bible says. And we're not. Not to be confused with a lot of the popular deconstruction movement ideas that we are exact equals with Jesus and we are exactly the same as God and the source of all creation. The other thing I want to talk about is when Jesus was here, his teachings were about this life. They were all about this life, how to live on earth. Not about the afterlife, not about what's to be expected after you die, which is contrary to virtually the entire concept of Christianity. The paradigm of Christianity in virtually every flavor revolves around the afterlife. Like, the whole point of Christianity, if you go to virtually any church in the world, is about what's going to happen when you die. I mean, like that's the whole point of Christianity, right? Like, get saved so you don't go to hell. Well, that's not it at all. So, 2 quick points right there, bullet pointed. I don't have a lot of time to talk, so I'm just gonna ramble this off real fast. So Jesus, I personally believe, now this is what I believe, so don't take like I'm preaching at you or to you what you should believe. This is what I have accumulated. This is the belief that I have accumulated thus far in my journey, through my deconstruction, if you want to call it that. Yes, there was a season of deconstruction when I went from evangelical to Christian, Christian Universalist. But it was, I don't know. I'd rather call it growth. You know, we could use the term evolution, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like with every waking moment, you're just a little bit older. So I'd just say it's growth. It's just a new season, a new chapter. The next in life. So anyway, I personally believe that Jesus is, the Son of God, but not in the way that we normally characterize or define son, because if a man and a woman have a child, they have a son. Well, obviously in Jesus's case, it didn't happen that way. And also in Jesus's case, he existed before he was born. And Jesus himself said, he claimed to be the great I am. He claimed to be God himself. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father, literally meaning I am the Father. I and the Father are one. He literally said there's, so it's kind of hard to, we like to try and say there's the multiple personas of God. There's the Trinity, you got Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Well, it's that's all like virtually all of the Bible, that's just a man-made idea. That's something we have attributed to his character and nature. It's not necessarily rock solid hardcore fact that God is 1 and 3, 3 and 1. I think you're really limiting God by trying to say he's a triune being. limiting them to 3. Like, I mean, there's... Okay, moving on. So, the point I'm trying to make here with this is that we're not... Sorry for coughing up a storm here. I need to have a sip of some water. We don't pre-exist. I see the early church, like before the scriptures were canonized and before there was like a formal Christian dogma or doctrine, and every church was in agreement on every point, preaching the same thing every Sunday, you know. Very, like, I think that the majority of what you would hear in many Christian meetings and gatherings was the denunciation of new heretical ideas that came in, that were coming in constantly, because Christianity was basically a baby religion. You know, it was an infant philosophy. But so I think to this day we still kind of have that same problem. Like, there's heresies constantly trying to infiltrate themselves into Christianity and what we're supposed to believe. I mean, look at the reason we have 43,000 known denominations. It's like, seriously, that's ridiculous. And that's just because, like, they're heresies, you know, different interpretations and ideas of what Christianity is come in, and then you have multiple people disagreeing, and then you have a split, and then you have a new denomination or a new sect of sorts. But at the end of the day, all that said, the point I'm trying to make, or that I want to focus on here, is that Jesus is God, is the express image of God. And now, why I can definitively say that, or why I personally believe that, even though I don't, like, for me, the Bible is not an authoritative document anymore. I still respect it, read it, glean from it, meditate on it, but it's not a place that I go for. Like, I don't necessarily rely on it as heavily to define my theology, because it, like I said in my last video, it's ancient cosmology, it's ancient literature. The genres that it was written in were various. Like, there's poetry, there's apocalyptic imagery, there's exhortation, for reasons that we don't even have the ability to know. Like, for example, when Paul was exhorting or reprimanding certain churches, we don't know what was going on in these churches to the extent that we would need to know exactly, or to the extent that we actually need to know in order to really know what Paul was trying to teach. You know, like when he was talking to the Galatians and the bewitchment and everything, it's like, yeah, we have an idea that, you know, they were like they were taking on old ideas, or like coming into agreement with like the Judaizers, people that were still like of the circumcision and law based and works based, trying to earn your salvation type of situation, you know. But at the end of the day, like, we don't know the ins and outs and all the details and what specifically Paul had in mind when he was addressing these things. Or like with the Corinthians, when there was a lot of infidelity and incest and, you know, a lot of just sexual immorality and stuff like that. Like, we don't know the details behind it. We don't know specifically what, you know, he was trying to address, which, you know, like, for example, we come away with Paul talking about women being quiet in church. Do you know that there's a really good chance he was actually addressing specific women, not all women in general, but like specific women that were adorning themselves and preaching about a pagan goddess. He wanted these women to shut up, essentially, about their pagan goddess of fertility that was, like, because Christianity was a very welcoming place. Like, there were a lot of people from all walks of life were coming in because it was it was new, it was obviously welcoming, it was all about just good news. And God is our Father. Like, and so even Paul was trying to, like, talk about people bringing in all these different ideas that were not good news. They were tainting the good news. They were, bringing in idols and whatever. So, man, I go on rabbit trails and tangents and completely lose my train of thought way too easily. But hey, if you don't like it, don't stick around. If you like it, stick around. So anyway, to the point, Jesus, I believe, is the Son of God, the express image of God, just like the Bible characterizes him. Because I've listened to so many near-death experiences, and a lot of near-death experiences encountered Jesus. People encountered Jesus, and nobody encounters Jesus as if he's just another person without stature or without any more stature than any other person. He's always representative of God, or the Son of God, an eternal being who never had a beginning, unlike us who have a beginning and have limitations. A lot of NDEs don't encounter Jesus, and they're just fine. They encounter God in other ways, or spirit, or source, or whatever. But ultimately, I don't think they necessarily need to encounter Jesus in the dogmatic format that we as typical Christians think you need to encounter him in order for it not to be like demonic or something. But so as far as like my biblical understanding of who Jesus is, I think it's confirmed and bolstered by a lot of the near-death experiences that I've heard. And I do give near-death experiencers a lot of weight, a lot of credit. Granted, a lot of them have experiences that are very apocalyptic-like or metaphor-like, and some people come back not knowing how to interpret what they experienced, and a lot of it was not very literal because of some of the things they experienced. So it's kind of like the book of Revelation. I have no doubt in my mind that the Apostle John had probably multiple near-death experiences, and he may have been in some wild near-death experience when he was penning the book of Revelation, getting like legit revelation from God, but it was all metaphor. It wasn't like he was in a literal place seeing literal things. Now, to him at the moment, it might have actually appeared literal, but when you're in the spirit world, what's literal doesn't translate as literal here. It's like we don't have the language to translate that world to this world. For like, to give you an idea, like we live in a three-dimensional world, length, width, height. Like in that world, it's probably like 15 dimensions. Like it's beyond our wildest ability to comprehend. So another wild tangent. Here I go. So anyway, what I wanted to get to in this video ultimately was that Jesus is God's express image, and I think that's been solidified even further in all these near-death experiences that I've listened to. And we're not the same. We are one with him. We're his offspring, kind of like an apple is the offspring of an apple tree, but we're not the apple tree. Got it? Like, Jesus is the apple tree. He's the one that literally holds all of creation together. Spirit, physical, everything in existence. He is the I am. He is the one. We're not the I am who holds everything in existence together. You know, if you think you're the I am on the same level as Jesus or God or Source or the Great Spirit, whatever, then let's see you start answering everybody's prayers. And I mean everybody's. Not just being telepathic and, you know, hearing other people's thoughts or channeling the deceased or whatever. But like literally start doing God's job. If you want to put yourself on the same plane as the creator of everything, then let's start seeing it. You know, and that's actually loaded, and it's a joke. You're not God. You are one with God. You are the offspring of God. You are of God's spirit. You're basically a drop in the ocean that is God, you know, but you're not the ocean. Like I said, you're not the apple tree. You're an apple. You can absolutely produce more apple trees. You can become an apple tree, but ultimately your parent apple tree is always going to be your parent apple tree. And you'll always have a beginning, whereas your parent never did. On that note, I do want to say time is an illusion. All of eternity exists right now. Past, present, and future. It literally happened, is happening, and will happen right now in this exact moment. There is no time. There's no linear time. It's an illusion. It's something that this filter literally, it's how we interpret reality. Time doesn't exist. We can't understand why or how. We don't have a language for that. But when you die or you leave this body and you go outside of it, you understand it. There's no language. You can't bring a language back here. I hear this so many times from NDEs. There's no language to describe it here. And most NDEs, when they come back here, they don't even have the ability to retain the full memory or ability to understand what they did understand there. They just don't have the capacity here. Here we're like, everything's filtered through whatever, you know, the smaller, whatever, lower frequency state of being. I don't know what you want to call it. But also, okay, this video is running way longer than I thought it was going to. But hey, if you're liking it and sticking around, great. Moving on to the next point. You got the first point. The first point is Jesus is God and we're not. But we are one with him and we are eternal. We just have a beginning. That said, I don't necessarily have a stance on reincarnation. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I do believe the early church believed in reincarnation. It wasn't a big topic, but it wasn't something scary or considered heretical. It was just something that it was, I don't know, like people believed you could come back, you could die and reincarnate. I don't believe the church ever really taught that reincarnation was the same as like, or they didn't believe in reincarnation the same way like like East Indians and Buddhists do, where you could come back as a frog or a spider. I think a human soul is a human soul, and if you are going to come back, you get the choice. It's not like you're coming back to make up for what you did before. And I don't know, I've heard a lot of NDEs talk about they planned their lives, they chose their parents, they wanted to come here to learn something that they couldn't learn in a state of complete perfection, where they can't experience pain and anguish and suffering, and where they know everything, so they can't experience what it's like to not know everything. So that's going to help, that right there, that's going to transition me into the other point. Jesus coming to earth and everything he taught on was relevant to life on earth, not life after death. Because when you die, you just go back home. Everybody just goes back home. It's kind of like you're snapping out of a dream. Whatever you did on earth, yes, there's a level of importance. Yes, suffering happened and it was not good, and evil, yes, it's evil. But when you essentially snap out of this existence, it was kind of like you're walking out of a movie theater and you're kind of back home. You're back to reality. All of that stuff didn't really have, well, it really didn't matter in light of eternity. You now have a new memory. You now have, it's like you, like I said, it's like you went to a movie. You learned some stuff for a second. Like, we're here for a second in light of eternity. It's a vapor of a second. And that's why I think you can reincarnate, but you don't necessarily reincarnate, and people are not held accountable for their life on earth the way we're taught that we're held accountable. Like, yes, there's going to be accountability. The life review judgment that we experience on the other side, this is another thing I've been learning from the NDEs, is when you get to the other side, like, God isn't sitting there on a throne waiting to judge everybody. That's not the judgment. The judgment is when we go through a life review and we relive, not just review, but relive every moment of our entire life. And we not only see it from our perspective, but we experience it fully from the perspective of those who we were in, who we influenced or who we affected. So, everybody you've crossed in your entire life, you're experiencing your interaction with that person from their perspective. So if you hurt them or helped them or whatever, you're reliving their life experience, their entire life experience. If whatever you did to them had a long-lasting experience, you're going to see it and feel it as if you lived it. And like I said, time doesn't exist, so you can experience all of it like that. And we can't comprehend that this side of the veil, but when you get there, it's not going to be hard to understand, because you're going to be way bigger of a consciousness. And it's kind of like God saying, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Well, yeah, because he's not in a body like he was when he was like when Jesus came here. He now learned something new. He came, what did the Bible say? He came here so that he could empathize with us, in a sense. He came here so that I don't remember the verbatim of the scriptures, but you know what I mean, if you know the scriptures. He basically came here like a priest understands what the people go through, because he lives a life of a human being, incarnate human being. Well, and Jesus did that so that he could feel what we go through from our perspective. Anyway, so all of Jesus's teachings on this earth were about how to live a better life on this earth, how to emanate our true being, or our true identity as children of eternal love. And when I say eternal, I mean that qualitatively, not quantitatively, because like I said, time doesn't exist. All time is right now. When we use the word eternal, try to shift your mind to that word meaning something qualitatively, something eternally deep and of a substantial quality, not so much how long lasting it is, because Time doesn't exist. It's all right now. So what Jesus was trying to teach us was like how to live as children of God, and that God is our Father. We can be one with Him. We can live here at peace. It's, I think, kind of almost like a game. It's like we're trying to figure out how to live as the love that literally makes up the core of our beings, but on a dimensional plane that is almost foreign to where, well, obviously foreign to where it naturally exists, you know, in the spirit world. I don't know, like here on Earth we have decay and a lot of fallen things. You know, like, yeah, we have the story of Adam and Eve and how they fell and turned away from God. But I mean, that was all, I think, part of the plan. It was inevitable because Adam and Eve really, on this plane, if they were really coming in here as ignorant, brand new created souls, like, I don't know, going too far now. Jesus basically taught us how to live on earth. It had nothing to do with the afterlife, because the afterlife, it all works out. There's no, like, there's no hell, there's no fire, like, what do you call it, like a fire, all this stuff. Revelation, that was all talking about things that happened in 70 AD. It was all talking about choices that you make in this life, how you interact with people in this life. You know, not to get too into it, but like, they were about, like, Jerusalem was about to be sacked and millions of people were about to die, and the book of Revelation was kind of laying all that out, you know. And then prophecy can carry on and mean multiple things throughout history. So, like, yeah, we could certainly see events unfold on earth that maybe you could say, well, this event is biblical proportions. But, like, I don't think Christianity is on track. Typical Western Christianity, I think, is just like a cult. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean that they're so far off truth that it's just like a complete and utter waste of time. I mean, the only thing that's worth the time of being a Christian in a church setting is to commune with God and with each other and relate, have relationship, lift each other up. And that's it. Like, but when it comes to like doctrine and expectation and eschatology and all that, it's all vanity. It's all waste. It's all not even close to real. So anyway, just wanted to throw this little ramble out there. In closing, Jesus is God. He's the incarnation, the express image of God, and we're made in His image and likeness, but we're not God incarnate like Jesus is. Number two, when Jesus was here, all of His teachings were relevant to us and how we live on earth. It had nothing to do with the afterlife whatsoever. Thanks for watching. I'd appreciate you hitting the subscribe button. Sorry for all the coughing. Recently overcame the Rona, I think. I didn't actually have a positive test, so I didn't die. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna make an attempt at throwing up a video every day just to get some content up. I have a lot I want to talk about, and I'm gonna practice not rambling on so much. So yeah, I'm gonna try and keep my videos at around 10 to 15 minutes, not a half an hour. But if you stuck around the whole time, thanks for watching.